Your brain can make you suffer from a future that does not exist. Think about that. A conversation that never happens. A mistake you never make. A disaster that never arrives. And yet, your heart races. Your mood changes. Your attention locks onto a possibility. Why? Why does the mind react to imagination as if it were reality? Why can a future event affect the present moment before it even arrives? And why can't the mind seem to stop? Most people assume overthinking happens because they care too much. But what if that isn't the reason at all? What if overthinking is not a flaw? What if it is a prediction system stuck in overdrive? The human brain evolved to do something extraordinary. It predicts. Long before you consciously recognize a situation, your brain is already searching for patterns, comparing experiences, estimating outcomes, preparing for possibilities. For most of human history, that ability was incredibly valuable. The person who anticipated danger often survived. The person who recognized patterns adapted faster. The person who prepared for uncertainty often had an advantage. The future mattered, so the brain became remarkably good at imagining it. But there is a consequence. The same system that helps us prepare for the future can also pull us away from the present. A possibility appears. The mind begins exploring it. What if this happens? What if I made the wrong decision? What if I missed something important? What if I fail? The questions multiply, the scenarios expand, the simulations continue, and because the future cannot be fully known, the mind keeps searching. Searching for certainty, searching for control, searching for answers that do not yet exist. Think about the last time you couldn't stop thinking about something. A relationship, a conversation, a decision, a mistake, a possibility. The event itself may have lasted only a few moments, but inside your mind, it continued for hours, days, sometimes much longer. Why? Because attention changes experience. The more attention something receives, the larger it often appears. A small uncertainty becomes a concern. A concern becomes a focus. A focus becomes a story. And eventually, that story begins shaping how you experience reality. This is where things become interesting. The brain does not experience only what is happening. It also responds to what it expects, what it remembers, what it predicts, what it imagines. A remembered experience can change your mood. An imagined future can influence your behavior. A possibility can affect your emotions long before reality arrives. The event has not happened, but the response is already happening. Think about that. How many times have you experienced stress because of something that never occurred? How many conversations have you rehearsed that never happened? How many outcomes have you feared that never arrived? The future existed only as possibility, yet the emotional experience felt real. That does not mean the mind is broken. It means the mind is powerful, powerful enough to simulate possibilities, powerful enough to prepare for outcomes, powerful enough to influence experience through expectation alone. There is another layer. Have you ever noticed that repeated thoughts begin to feel more convincing? Not necessarily because they are true, but because they are familiar. The mind hears the same story repeatedly, again and again and again, until familiarity begins feeling like certainty, until repetition begins feeling like evidence. The thought may not have become more accurate. It may simply have become more familiar. And familiarity can be surprisingly persuasive. That may be one of the most overlooked influences on human behavior. because thoughts repeated frequently can begin shaping perception. They influence attention. They influence interpretation. They influence what we notice. And eventually, they influence how we respond. This creates a fascinating loop. The more attention a thought receives, the stronger it appears. The stronger it appears, the more attention it receives. And the cycle continues. This may be one reason overthinking feels so difficult to escape. The mind is attempting to solve uncertainty, using the very process that uncertainty continues to fuel. The question becomes, how do you interrupt the loop? Not by eliminating every thought. That would be impossible. Not by controlling every possibility. That would be impossible too. Not by analyzing every fear until you finally feel safe, because there will always be another possibility, another question, another scenario, another prediction. Perhaps the answer begins with a different realization. Not every thought requires an answer. Not every possibility requires investigation. And not every question deserves your attention. Read that again. Not every thought deserves your attention. Because attention is fuel. Whatever receives it tends to grow. And whatever grows tends to influence perception. Something changes when you recognize the pattern. The thought may still exist. The uncertainty may still exist. The unanswered question may still exist. But awareness introduces distance, a small amount of space, a moment between the thought and the reaction, a moment between prediction and conclusion, a moment between possibility and belief. And sometimes that small space changes everything. Physics offers an interesting perspective. In quantum mechanics, observation plays an important role in what can be measured. What that ultimately means is still debated, but it raises a fascinating question. If observation changes what we notice in science, what happens when observation enters our own experience? What happens when the mind becomes aware of what the mind is doing? Perhaps the thoughts continue. Perhaps uncertainty remains. Perhaps life remains unpredictable. But awareness changes the relationship. You begin seeing the pattern. You begin recognizing the loop. You begin noticing that not every thought is a fact. Not every possibility is a prediction. And not every fear deserves your belief. Perhaps overthinking is not a sign that something is wrong with you. Perhaps it is evidence that your mind is doing what it evolved to do. Predict, prepare, protect. Perhaps the mind is not your enemy. Perhaps it is simply trying to protect you. The question is whether every warning deserves to be believed. Because life remains uncertain. The future remains unwritten. The questions may continue, but awareness changes the experience of asking them. The facts are real. What they mean, you decide. Stay with that.